calling Justin out on our YouTube comments. All right, I believe that we are live. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
We got some guests with us today. Someone that nobody has ever seen before, and no, she does not currently work for 3D Musketeers. This is a guest. We have Miss Olivia. If you don't have to say your last, oh, I guess your last name's in the thing. So,
Yeah, Olivia Krueger.
okay. I didn't want to butcher it because I know if someone's gonna butcher it, it's gonna end up being me, and I can't blame Justin for it. So, might as well just have you get that out of the way early. We apologize for the delay. Somebody is having computer problems, and when I mean somebody, I mean Justin. So
yeah, Zoom doesn't want to open.
If you've been waiting impatiently, go ahead and write in the comments, blame Justin, or write mean things about him. We are going to be talking all about the Desktop Metal acquisition because, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous freaking news right now. Everybody is kind of freaking out, I guess. Some people were like, yeah, we saw this coming from a mile away. Others were like, wait, what? And I think when we look at this whole thing, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. This is very much a transformer. It's more than meets the eye. Anyways, Olivia, if you don't mind, tell everybody, who you are, where you're from, what you did, and as long as you love us, give us the Backstreet Boys here.
All right. So, my name is Olivia Krueger. I am from southeastern Wisconsin. I'm actually currently a university student. Major focus on additive manufacturing and plans for a small business startup after college, focusing primarily on jigs and fixtures manufacturing. So, additive is something I've been obsessed with for a very long time. Been hanging out with Grant in a couple of networking groups for the last couple of months. Got to know him real well through that, and yeah, thought I'd be happy to come on and talk a little bit of speculation and industry gossip on what this acquisition actually means.
Yeah, because it's a pretty big freaking deal. Like,
oh yeah,
ridiculously big, at least for us, right? In this industry, we all look at this and say, dang, because as far as I'm concerned, this is probably one of the cheapest acquisitions that has happened in a, like, I don't know how Desktop Metal got this, because
their Envision Tech purchase was actually less, if I'm correct.
Right, but Envision Tech doesn't have the market cojones
exactly
that is held.
This MakerBot acquisition was worth more than, or just about the same as this. Like that blows my mind.
Yeah, the MakerBot acquisition was something like $480,000, somewhere in that range.
Oh no, it was millions.
Or sorry, 480 million. Excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, Grant, dumbass. No, it was a fair bit of money, and this to me is getting ExOne on the cheap. I mean, ExOne is one of the original 5 powerhouses in this industry for going public, right? They they were the first big ones to really get out there and go public. They've been public for years now. I had shares in them. Son of a gun, sold them. Because, yeah, if you were holding ExOne shares Wednesday night, you got a nice little $12 a share payday, which was pretty awesome. But, yeah, it was just interesting because in these networking groups, we know people that work for ExOne, and they only found out when the rest of us found out. They didn't know ahead of time.
That it got released like half an hour early. It ended up all the press releases went out at 4:20 while it should have been at like 5 o'clock.
Is that why because the first article that we saw was from Yahoo.com, but the Australian version of Yahoo.com.
So it was one of those websites, like, I don't know if it was Business Insider or something else, where basically they'll just take a press release and republish it as news.
Yeah.
but yeah, their republish came like half an hour before their actual shareholder meeting where they were going to announce it.
Freaking rip. Now, I wonder if did that announcement come before or after market close? I'd be curious to see if someone was able to snipe that announcement really, really quickly, if they were able to buy some shares on the cheap before they went crazy after hours. That would be, I mean, hey, early bird gets the worm, but second mouse gets the cheese kind of deal, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it like the fact that it was announced, early is shocking. But yeah, realistically, like only going for 575 million when you are a very well established company in especially in the metal binder jetting space, because it's such a complicated process.
Yep.
Like they consistently have the best machines, the best parts off the machines, the most reliable machines. They deliver on what was promised. Like they're a company that follows through. They're solid. They've been around for a long time. And yeah, to have this new young upstart actually be the one purchasing ExOne is really, I think, caught a lot of people off guard.
For sure it did. If our video that we put out Friday is any distinction, it is so far our best video in 24 hours. Like, outside of the crazy videos that we've had that have went viral, for a standard video, it's our best video that we've ever had in 24 hours worth of performance. And unfortunately, it messed up our entire production schedule. There was a video that was supposed to come out Friday that really needs to come out on a Friday because it's a long video. So now that has to get pushed a week. So we either said, are we gonna push everything a week, or are we going to just make a video, something like that for Monday? So actually, we pushed everything a week because whatever. So we have Alberlo. Oh, I'm gonna butcher that name. ExOne are a reference, but they are not growing at all. That is not accurate. According to the ExOne data from their shareholder meeting, ExOne was seeing 44% sequential revenue growth in Q2 of 2021 and 30% year-over-year revenue growth in the first half of 21. So they're compared to Desktop Metal. Okay, yeah. Well, yes. Most companies are not growing at all compared to Desktop Metal. Desktop Metal is flush with cash. They're new on the market, and they're they won the Powerball, and now they're going out and buying Ferraris for themselves and everybody around them, right?
It's really like comparing Tesla to like the Volkswagen Group. Like, one's been there for a long time, been big, they're a big powerhouse, but then you have Tesla coming along and boom, and shaking up the market. So that's kind of how I.
The other statement with it too is, like, if you have Desktop Metal on the market and they are burning bright, they are burning fast, but they're still burning. And the question is, are they going to grow and purchase so much so fast that they're going to run out of runway and end up burning out and effectively running out of fuel? And the general thought is, with this purchase of ExOne, it gives them credibility, it gives them a basis. Hell, it gives them almost double their IP. And it is a very smart move for Desktop Metal. And realistically, it's far more of a merger than an acquisition.
I think so, because both companies are going to be benefiting from the other. I think considerably Desktop Metal is going to be the bigger benefiter here, but I don't think anybody would argue that point. I think that ExOne just comes with so much more clout, and in this industry, clout is king. And I kind of hate that. But that's the way it goes. And with ExOne having all of this industry experience that, quite frankly, Desktop Metal just doesn't have. as long as Desktop Metal doesn't go in and just fire everybody, right, and just clean house and replace it with their own people, which if they do that, I don't have a lot of faith for the long term of this acquisition.
Desktop will burn out if they pull that.
They're gonna pull a 3D Systems, and it's exactly what I said in our video. You can see very clearly in 3D Systems stock when they started going on shopping sprees, and it peaked at like $94 share, and then it fell within 3 or 4 months back down to where it was pre, because they literally just bought companies, fired everybody, and shelved it to maintain the IP. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's the same thing that happened in 2014. Same thing with Stratasys, with 3D Systems. It's just who can buy who.
And that's fair. And I'm surprised with how cheap this is, with how cheap ExOne was bought for. I'm curious to see if I want to hear. We've got a buddy of ours that works pretty high up in 3D Systems. I would love to get like an off-the-record opinion from him as to how pissed everybody at 3D Systems is for not understanding how, because 3D Systems has got this kind of money. Like, that's their marketing budget for the year. $500 million, that's marketing. Their R&D is billions of dollars a year, I would guess. And $500 million, or a little over $500 million for ExOne. ExOne wanted this too. This was not like, because you can do these kind of forced acquisitions where you just buy enough of the company that you've got enough board seats that nope, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, you own the majority. This was very much, people were talking about this for a while. They decided this is best for both companies, and they decided on a price that made sense because the multiplier is really low. I think it's like a 6.4 or 6.5%.
Yeah.
Or 6.4 or 6.5x revenue valuation, which in this industry is quite low. I mean, MakerBot was definitely not valued at $100 million when they got bought for 400 plus. They were probably a $50 or $60 million company at best. So they had in maybe a 10% a 10x thing.
Yeah,
there's
really
more to this deal. Huh?
It's really hard to compare MakerBot to this at that price point. It doesn't click. Because like the MakerBot technology is so different and not as like, I mean, the ExOne machines are millions of dollars compared to these desktop machines, which are a couple grand at most of the time.
So that individual is saying the acquisition was not cheap because shareholders got a 43% premium. This is probably why Desktop Metal stock price is still diving. It is common during an acquisition that the buying company will see a reduction in their stock price. And this is because, well, they just spent a ton of money. And what do shareholders care about? Money. Desktop Metal is not going to see that $575 million for a while. So as far as shareholders are concerned, this is not the greatest thing, but you have to look at this, long term. I look at this and say, hey, Desktop Metal's on sale. Right? So if you're looking to invest in this market, as long as Desktop Metal doesn't just beans this whole thing up, their stock is on crazy clearance right now. And I noticed that in the video. I'm like, their stock is diving. But their stock has not been going amazingly well for a while now. They've had a couple of rough weeks. So, I don't know. That's just one of those oddities.
I should have named this podcast not financial advice.
Hopefully I put in there that this is not financial advice, because none of us are financial planners. We do not provide financial advice. Any things that you do, because we are talking about it, is your own damn problem. Don't play money you're not willing to lose. That's all I have to say about investing. Because I think between us, there might be 60 years, 70 years, 70, maybe 80 years on Earth. So don't trust us when it comes to financial advice. But their stock has gone down, so that means it's on sale. Just saying. Like, that's just a fact.
Remember, we know stonks.
Buy low, sell high, or buy high, sell low. Whatever it is.
Total.
Yes, yes, yeah. You're. This is why our company has a smooth brain chat in its Discord, because of people like Justin and my brother. Uh, oh god, Al. His name is tough. Alberello. Alberello, probably Alberello. He says, or they say they are doubling down and they are bullish on them. I think any person that understands this industry is going to be relatively bullish on Desktop Metal right now. If they can utilize, they're basically doubling their patent holdings. They're doubling their ability to sell machines. As long as they don't screw this up, this is probably one of the smartest long-term plays that I've seen come out of any 3D printing company. Now,
Now,
mind you, go ahead.
the other benefit of this too is that recently they purchased Aerosent, which allows for multi-material metal sintering.
Did they?
So on a desktop metal system, the general consensus in metal additive was that, you know, running Aerosent with a desktop metal system isn't all that impressive, just because desktop metal has sort of cracked the code to binder jetting. But with the purchase of ExOne and the gaining of all of their IP, all of their industrial knowledge and everything else,
They've got it now.
suddenly the game changes. Suddenly things are, you know, this could go very, very interesting directions, combining desktop metal and their ability to market, the institutional knowledge and skill sets of ExOne, and the technical capabilities of Aerosent.
I don't know much about Aerosint. Can you dive into them a little bit? Because how many companies has Desktop Metal bought recently? I know we covered Forest. We covered their acquisition of Forest, where I kind of figured out that they own Envision Tech, but we actually edited that portion out of the video because I could not 100% get that right. But they own Envision Tech. What other companies have they bought so far?
Envision Tech, ExOne, Aerosent. There's been a lot of acquisitions and a lot of IPOs going around lately. So
yeah, the theme this year is SPAC all the things. Apparently, in the 3D printing industry, we've seen so many companies go public this year. I've been in this industry for 13 years. I have not seen this many companies go public ever. Not in the 3D printing industry. I may not follow.
I mean, there's so, not even just in the 3D printing industry, like just so much has gone public during the year. Like the people behind Rotorite went public, like, and Fat Shark, all the drone companies went public that are US based, which is great. Like there's just there's so much innovation going on right now. It's pretty crazy.
Part of me thinks that they're betting on the market recovering, and if they come out now, as the market starts to recover, a rising tide rises all ships, and it gives them extra free cash to play with. Alberello is saying, Olivia, can you tell something regarding your experience on the printing differences between the two companies? Are ExOne printers more expensive?
So my technical experience with both of these printers is relatively low. I have more of an academic interest in them. ExOne being an old guard company, I mean, neither of these systems are cheap. It's more that ExOne systems are tend to be a bit more reliable, a bit more proven, and their material offerings are a lot better vetted. And I believe they have a handful more than Desktop Metal was.
They do.
In addition to that, where Desktop Metal is primarily focusing on metal, obviously, and now wood also.
And resin.
Yes, you're right, resin. You have ExOne is focusing on metals, but another one of their, I think it's oftentimes less talked about, but really, really impressive machines is their sand core printers. I know there are companies that are printing sand cores that they've been manufacturing them in-house using the standard dies. The company I work for does that. They manufacture in-house sand cores. They send them right down the line to be manufactured into your brass castings. But they've recently started printing on ExOne machines because you can just get better results on it. You can get your results faster, you can get better options. Their sand technology, as far as I'm aware, nobody else is playing in that space.
No, yeah, they're not to my. Okay, not any big company, right? I am
Yes.
sure there are people playing in this industry that we are not aware of, right? I mean, let's be real. There's no way to really truly understand everything that's out there in this industry because it is so crazy. There's tons of private companies, tons of public companies, and even the public ones are keeping a lot of things close to chest. I've got experience running ExOne for about a month and a half. I had access to a couple of ExOne machines. One was a sand core, and they're amazing. They just work. And I got access to this because of my experience with binder jetting. So I run, or previously ran, quite a few full color sandstone machines, which on the core of it are not all that different from what ExOne is doing. They're just way more consumer grade, if that makes sense. These are still £1,000, $90,000 machines. If you can get an ExOne for 90 grand, it's because you're buying a used machine. That's the only, and you're buying an old used machine. ExOnes, you're starting, I believe, in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, which is right where the premier offerings from Desktop Metal land as well. I've never used a Desktop Metal. I have seen them. I've been to Rapid. I have seen them running. I have looked at parts. I've always wondered how Desktop Metal was going to fare with the Markforged Metal X, and especially how with companies like the Virtual Foundry, where you can get literally the same style of filament and run it in off-the-shelf I'm going to put air quotes over consumer because prosumer is probably more accurate. Grade 3D printers.
You got to do some modifications even for a Prusa.
Yeah, you will. You'll need some modifications, but it will be fine.
You need to get some of the BASF Ultrafuse.
Yeah, well, you know what? If those companies want to sponsor us, I'd be more than happy to do displays on them, but I don't have that kind of money right now. See? Hi, sponsor us. That'd be awesome. Speaking of sponsors, Justin, is that our segue to our sponsor for this episode?
I think so.
I think that's our segue. That's right. We are going to be self-sponsoring these, so this episode is sponsored by 3D Musketeers. If you want to get your ideas out of your head and into your hands with full art part, rapid prototyping, and product development, you can reach out to us, 3dmusketeers.com. Links will be in the description. But yeah, I've always wondered this. Now, apparently, ExOne doesn't seem to give a damn. And I don't think that they have any reason to care, because ultimately, their machines are just bigger. They're going to have higher quality. Apparently I'm not flipped, according to Allison. Can I do that inside of... Nope.
You can do it in OBS.
Oh, I can do it in OBS. All right. Yeah, let me do that. This was a last-minute thing. Normally we use Zoom. But somebody, Justin, was having some technical difficulties, and Zoom just isn't working. He can't connect to the NAS in his house. It's a Justin problem. So we went to Discord as a last-minute thing, so that's why we were a few minutes late. Anyways. Yeah, Olivia, what are you thinking in terms of long-term here? Because I guess I'm personally a little concerned, and I don't think they're going to do this, but I hope they don't, that Desktop Metal might get rid of the ExOne brand. Do you think they're going to keep it, or do you see them rebranding themselves to be more around the lines of binder jetting? Like, where do you see this long term ending up for DM?
I don't think they'll drop the name. I really don't. I think they'll leave them as a subsidiary. I'm more worried about culture clash in this sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, the two company cultures are wildly different, and I think ExOne's culture is successful for the kind of people that they're looking for. I think that, you know, if you take their by-the-books Pittsburgh engineers and you throw them into Boston startup environment, they're not going to be happy. They're going to leave. So I think the smart move in this case, long-term, is going to be acquire ExOne, learn from them, but more or less just let them do their thing. It's working. It's working well. The name has, you know, weight behind it. Arguably more weight than Desktop Metal. ExOne's proven they're not just a passing fad. So it'd be smart for them to stick with that name, to value it, to collect their, their business. And the other part of this is they let Forest keep their name. They let Forest be Forest, and Forest is doing great. Forest is making a name for themselves. Their turnaround time for orders right now is somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks to actually get parts made and shipped out because the demand on their systems is huge. Just
And
because,
that's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but when you've got a new system launch and you think, okay, nobody's really printed in wood before, we're going to try this out, we're going to launch through this Desktop Metal group, we're here now, and you open up and immediately, 4 to 6 weeks, and that's with your team working, I'm positive, well over 40 hours a week to keep these things running. You have to be in there all day, every day to be hitting those targets, and that's still a pretty decent wait time when you say you're printing through a service bureau.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if we were to tell people at 3DM that we were running a 4 to 6 week lead time, they'd go find somebody else.
Yeah.
Now the trick is, you can't with Forest, right? They're
Yep.
the only ones that are doing it. Now, I've got wood fill. Where is it? There's wood fill behind me. It's underneath the bright green spool right there, and so that's got wood, fiber in the plastic, but it's still a plastic-based material. Prints beautifully, by the way. Smells like wood. It's hilarious. I'm like, who's sanding? Oh, that's right. We're printing wood fill. So that is kind of lovely, but it's not like what Forest does. We were debating on getting some Forest parts, like right when we did the video, but even right when we did the video, which was a day or two after the announcement. We don't, when these kind of announcements come up, we don't wait. We just go forward with the videos. If we have to do an update later on, to correct some mistakes or add more information, we do that. But we, if we can be the first ones on the out of the gate to do it, then you kind of win that. But yeah, with Forest, I really wanted to have some of their printed parts, but never got around to getting them because I like this whole digital wood grain. I think that's very interesting. Something that in binder jetting we have attempted to do, but the Z Corp and ProJet 660 line, they're the same things. 3D Systems just changed it to be half black instead of all a very specific color of white. The Z Corp 650s and the ProJet 660 Pros are effectively the same machines under the hood. There's a little bit of firmware difference, but you can run the ProJet 660 firmware on a Z Corp 650. Ask me how I know. My 650 is currently running 660 firmware. It doesn't know the difference. It thinks it's a 660. But when MIT and Z Corp developed that printer, they painted it a very specific color. That color does not show you the powder all over it. When 3D Systems said, we want it to match our color scheme, and they made it this dark gray, the freaking powder stands out like nobody's business, and it just made everything more messy. But we were attempting to copy that, but we're using a white powder, and we're trying to make wood grain. They're using literally wood fiber, and they're making wood grain by just using darker binder, which I think is brilliant.
Have you actually held have you had any samples that you've been able to take a look at in
from
person?
Forest?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
We never
I
ordered
have.
any. Their lead time was too long,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to wait to get the video out, so we just kind of went with it. But yeah, I've never held. Have you?
Mm-hmm. I've held their like spiraled vase and then their full layout of the sample chips, and they're nice. They're good. I'm not gonna say they've got the best accuracy because I'm designing a part right now for an exploration just to kind of take a look into it. So their minimum wall thickness is still 5 millimeters.
Oof.
Yeah.
Why?
Gotta get your chunks to fuse, man.
We
don't
were
know.
running 1.5 millimeters thick for full color sandstone, but I guess it's because they're using like a physical glue. Is there any like post print infiltration? Do you know?
So yeah, the post processing, what you have to do for it, they come off the printer just fine. And it's a very rough matte texture. It just kind of looks like you dumped a bunch of wood glue and some wood fibers and built up the shape of this face.
Yeah.
So after the fact, you still have to go through and do sanding and staining, but
That's not bad. Yeah,
no,
that's not bad.
it's not.
So,
It
but
is
they're coming out
if you
full
start.
strength.
Yeah, they come out full strength.
Okay.
It gets a little rough if you, because yeah, you're not gonna sinter your wood.
Well, no. So like on the binder jetting that we do, full color
Yeah.
sandstone, you have to then So it's a green binder. So the binders, there's nothing to it, right? It crumbles in your hands if you're not
Right.
nice with it. Then you have to dunk it in super glue. So
No, as far as I'm aware, it comes off
okay,
totally ready to go. It
But-
just needs that post processing.
you treat it like wood. Albarello is saying, do you think that desktop metal growth in the next quarter will be limited from the printer production capabilities?
No, specifically only a service bureau. That's just Forest. They're not producing machines yet, right?
He's saying
They're
desktop
only...
metal, not Forest.
I know, but that's what we were talking about the printer production. So
Well, I think they're more asking toward the
shortage-wise and whatnot.
well, I'm sure shortage is a thing, but also what am I trying to get at here? The idea that they've now acquired a bunch of companies that are now looking at them to say, how can you help us? Right? What are you going to do to help me? And they're going to say, no, you're just going to be doing your own thing. We're over here. I think we might see some stunting of growth in terms of, regarding the production system. I don't know exactly what production system they're referencing, but regarding the production system, I don't know if Desktop Metal was ever a company that was designed for what we would all consider production. I think
Talking about the product, their production line of printers. They have 3 different tiers of printers. They have the Fiber, which is their Markforged competitor, Studio
Right.
System, which would be Metal X competitor, then Shop System, which is their lower end direct metal sintering, and then their production systems, their large metal system designed for factory floors.
They're asking about their biggest printer. I would guess that we're going to see some changes on their production systems. I think that they're going to be integrating a lot of this technology from Forest, from ExOne, from EnvisionTech. If people are sitting there wondering how do all these companies meet up, you're not looking at it close enough. They want the resin technology and experience from EnvisionTech. They want the fiber printing, organic style fiber printing from Forest. And now they want the actual, time and experience of doing sand and, other binder jetting style of printing from ExOne to all come underneath their umbrella. I have a feeling that we're going to see some printers that integrate a lot of those technologies together. My concern as someone that runs professional grade 3D printers is service. What happens with that? And then material pricing, because let's face it, Desktop Metal has spent a non-trivial amount of money. And how are they going to be? This money does not come from nowhere. There are investors. There are people that are spending money to ensure that, they're going to get a return. They're going to have to raise their prices or things aren't going to work here. So I'm curious to see where that's going to happen as well.
The other thing is, I don't think we're going to see issues with them being able to sell their shop system. I don't think anyone thinks this transition and this integration of these new systems is going to be a fast process.
Right.
And if you're a company that needs to start printing in binder jetting, great. You're going to be buying from Desktop Metal or ExOne. Same thing. And these contracts take a while to negotiate. Okay. So I really don't think you're going to see any ripple effects happening in the next quarter. I think you'd see it in 2 to 3 quarters, but any of those conversations about buying these systems, they've already started long before ExOne was purchased, and I don't think anybody's going to get cold feet because of it.
I agree here. I don't see this acquisition hurting either company. What I do see is some of the current owners of ExOne getting potentially a little a little light-footed here. You know, at the end of the day, Desktop Metal could very much say, you know what, we're not going to support all these old X1 systems, and whenever these X1 people decide to leave for whatever reason they leave, that's it. Your machines are deprecated. Now, I hope they don't do that. You know, to be good to their people, they're likely not going to do that. However, it is a true and full possibility that this occurs. And that's a bit of a scare. Anytime, right, two large companies join forces, you have to realize that there's going to, you know, like you were saying, Olivia, there's going to be a mass exodus of staff from this because they don't like the company culture, they don't like their new boss, they're, you know, maybe they don't like Desktop Metal, maybe they're, you know, they've been waiting for a reason to leave. People will leave for ridiculous reasons. People will leave for good reasons. Like when my top guy from 3D Systems left, my tech that I used to work with, I said, all right, I'm just going to learn how to run these machines myself and fix them myself. Because 3D Systems was saying, well, it'll be 3 to 4 months so we can get somebody out to service your machine. Now, I'm sorry, it's a $100,000 system and I had 5 of them. You can't tell me it's going to take 3 to 4 months for someone to come out and service my machine. That's ridiculous. I can't run a business like that. And so I end up talking to the head of 3D Systems for their service department. He said, well, if you just want them to work, you have to buy more machines. That's not a good answer. Distinctly not a good answer, Saul. You will never see this, but that's fine. And I told him, I said, that's the most ridiculous answer I've ever heard in my life. I've spent enough money with you. Why can't the service contracts that I pay every year for actually be used? So eventually I stopped by the service contracts, learned how to fix all the parts myself. Now my machines run like hot dams. But that was a huge issue when that was back when 3D Systems was going through a lot of their buying. It was back when their stock was tanking. That was when they were seeing like sub $10 a share stock prices. They were not in the mood to do servicing. They wanted to sell material, sell material, sell materials. So that's where the money comes from. And we saw that. They kept raising the prices on all their materials. So what did we do? We formulated our own super glue. What did we do? We formulated our own binder. We had a client that worked at a company that made laser mass spectrometers. We spent 6 months and did laser mass spectrometer testing on all the binders so we could figure out what was in it between batches, you know, if there's any difference. The difference was crazy. We saw a delta of more than 10 on the colors because, of course, this is CMYK, and then there's a clear, which is your white. And so we just started making it all ourselves. When 3D Systems decided to leave us out to dry, well, we left them out to dry. Al Borello says, during the last conference call, they told the technology integration will take a long time. So in line with Olivia's opinion to maintain the actual brand. I think Desktop Metal will make a big mistake if they don't maintain these individual brands. Those brands carry so much weight in their individual industries. Unless Desktop Metal themselves rebrand, it doesn't work. Right? It just doesn't work. In my mind, at least.
Yeah,
What do you
and
guys think?
the other thing here is like, are we expecting Desktop Metal to actually go through a rebrand themselves? Like after all of these acquisitions, after everything they've got, they're certainly not desktop, and they're not entirely metal either. So the question is, do they keep the name because they've made a name for themselves, or are they gonna modify? I mean, you could throw a plus on the end. You could be Desktop Metal Plus, and it solves all your problems. Or maybe you just say, you know, screw it, the name doesn't match, but the brand built around it, and it'll be what it'll be.
I've wondered the same thing. I don't want to see them go the way of the naming scheme of the iPhone and Prusa and all of that. I want to see them have a name that's very deliberate. My thought is they might create a parent company. Desktop Metal goes under that umbrella, and all these other companies go under that umbrella. Their stock ticker's probably still going to remain DM. So my assumption would be that this parent company would have initials of DM. Mm-hmm. They can change their stock ticker, but it's probably gonna be a pain in the ass to get that done.
Yeah, at some point the question is, we've put all the work in under the name Desktop Metal. Everybody knows this is Desktop Metal. We've got all the marketing for it. At what point is renaming really worth it? What is the benefit in the long run? And maybe there is down the line, but right now, there's a lot to talk about there, and the name Desktop Metal is one of the points of conversation.
One of our staff says it should be called Desk Plus Metal.
I mean, you
Which,
could technically make a desk now because you have the
yeah,
floor, make the tabletop, and then you can make the legs out of metal.
it's not that. That would be hilarious. I want them to 3D print like their executive conference table now, where it's a
Oh
forest
my
wood top
God.
and metal and sand legs and bases.
That'd be a good one. I'm a big fan of, so obviously, we've all seen the Adidas sunglasses that are an atrocious use of overflexing your additive capabilities. But little touches of additive and 3D printing for the sake of 3D printing, they can be very fun if they're done right.
You're not gonna talk about your table, Olivia.
No, that's atrocious. That's an abomination that shouldn't exist. I convinced Stratasys to print me an entire side table, like a 30-inch tall side table, out of Ultem.
Have you taken a flamethrower to it yet?
No. Yes,
Is
it is a
this
$6,000 table.
is this a personal, like you have it in your house?
Yep.
Can you get it?
No, I have it in my other house. I'm at my parents' place right now. It's up
Very
at my
upsetting.
university house. Yeah,
Why do you have a table made of Ultem?
because I could. Because I asked them. I worked at Stratasys for a little bit. And I asked them, I said, I want to print something on your F900, your large printer. And they said, okay. And I said, okay, how, like, what time frame? What do I need to stick in? And they're like, I don't know, like 5 days. I'm like, are you sure? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. What material? Something cheap? PLA, ASA, something like that? They're like, no, whatever. Like, you can take that back. You can take that back right now.
This is your
They're like,
last
"No."
and final warning.
Yep. And they're like, nah, it's cool, whatever. I'm like, okay, so Ultem? They're like, yeah, sure. We've got some old canisters laying around, like half used. Yeah, we'll just burn through them for that.
How heavy's the table?
So it's super light. It's like their lightest infill possible, and I can still sit on it. It's really poorly topology optimized because I ran out of time, and as it turns out, if you just make a block and you want it to have 4 legs, a table, like if you run a top up on a table, it just makes 4 legs. Which stands to reason. So I had to do some funky force geometry. It's not pretty. I'll send it to you later, Grant, if you want to put it on any socials. I do think it's a very fun little project, but as I found out after I printed that table, Stratasys then implemented a $5,000 cap for personal projects per department.
Oh,
So
you were the person that the rule was made after.
yeah.
That has been a like a life goal to have either a law or a rule made because of something that I did, right? Because that
Yep.
means I've been so impactful that someone said this needs to change.
Yeah, it's a good one, especially considering the fact that like I left my group. I moved to a different group, so I was still technically with the company, but I left my department and I had one person who was there who was helping me with this project, and she's like, "Yep, we can't fit it into the queue yet, but we should be able to get it in a couple of weeks, and then when it's done, I'll mail it to you." So yeah, Stratasys shipped me a table. They printed it and then they shipped it to me.
Like on a pallet? Like
No, just in a really big cardboard box.
I love it.
an aerospace-grade table now?
Yeah, genuinely. For those who don't know, Ultem is aerospace-grade material, certified for aerospace use. Really hard to print with. Not many
Yes.
people do it. Also insanely expensive. I think a kilogram spool is like $300, something like that. Higher. I don't even know what it is.
6.
6,
Last I
yeah.
checked, it was 6. Here, I'll check again.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it is not cheap, and I still don't know how I quite got away with it, but yeah, I was printing it on their R&D machines, and they just had, like I said, half-used Ultem spools that they
Was
were
it
looking to clear
1010
out.
or 9085?
I think it was 1010.
All right, let me see. I think 1010's the cheaper.
I can't remember which.
Yeah, 225 for 1010 for a kilo. Now this is from 3DX Tech, so this is like retail, whereas
Yep.
Stratasys would be charging you. Is it translucent and very like honey gold, or is it like my white ass skin color?
It's honey gold.
Okay, so that's 1010.
Yeah.
Oh wow, Ultem's really gone down. 250 a kilo for 9085. I've got some samples of Ultem here, and whenever we do like public events, lol, I'll take some with me, and I'll take a blowtorch, and everyone loves it because so have I ever shown you the demonstration, Justin? You have to ask me next. I know where the Ultem is. I know where my blowtorch is. I can't feel my legs all that well, so we're not getting up. I appreciate. Vanna White was passing me my blowtorch, but she doesn't know where the Ultem is. Yeah, it's fine. Basically, it expands and carbonizes. It does not catch fire, ever. You can use MAP gas. You can use oxyacetylene. It will not catch fire. It is V0. Does not catch fire. But unlike most V0 materials, like we have UL94 V0 ABS, that will melt. Ultem just carbonizes. And it's pretty astounding to see how it works. We call them God class materials, but aerospace is probably more PC friendly. Yeah, but I tell people, if you want to print Ultem, do not ask me how to do it on your Ender 3. when a kilo of the material costs more than your printer.
There is a internally in their R&D group.
I don't mean to interrupt you here, Olivia. He's stroking his non-existent 17-year-old beard, and I am just saying, Justin, no. Bad Justin.
You don't have the finances for that, man.
But see, Justin's one of those people that's a smooth enough talker that someone's going to give him like a 50-gram spool for free just so they can see him fail. Justin, let me explain to you the things that you need to go through to print. You know what, Olivia? Why don't you go through the things that are necessary to print Ultem reliably?
Oh, Lord. Real high temps.
How high?
What temperature is it? I don't know. Like...
I'm going to pull it
ungodly,
up if you want me to pull
yeah,
it up.
pull up the number. I don't know the number off the top of my head. Ungodly high. You also need to have the heated build chamber because if you
Yes, you
don't, it peels like crazy. If you have an unevenly heated build chamber, which does happen in the F900s, they do have hot spots. It's okay in my case because I had a whole ass table laying face down, so I had a lot of surface area to go on there. But for the average person, if you have uneven heating, it'll curl, it'll peel, it'll print like hot garbage. And I can say I've seen it before in their R&D lab. They have what they call the elephant's foot, which is where they started an Ultem build, went home for the weekend, came back, and it had covered the entire print head. And now on a Stratasys machine, what happens is when it prints, it periodically will lift up and move over and wipe the nozzles so that it's cleaning itself as it's printing. But as this elephant foot kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it just would slam into these walls, and it was breaking the machine as it was printing, because I believe this was also one of their early F900s that didn't have quite all of the emergency stops and the sensors on them. So yeah, they have this giant pool of melted Ultem that someone uses as a paperweight out there.
It's so interesting to see the differences in the terminology. So elephant's foot on the consumer side is your first layer being squished. And what we call when your nozzle gets coated in filament is the blob of doom. Because generally speaking, in cheap 3D printers, it is just easier to just get a new hot end than it is to even bother trying to clean it.
And in this case, it's called elephant's foot because the way the Ultem printed and in the striation patterns, it genuinely that blob looks like the elephant's foot in Chernobyl.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you're referencing Chernobyl, which I think is probably a better distinction for this, because it is very similar. So Justin, without being a real pain in my ass and looking it up, what do you think the extruder temperature is for Ultem 1010?
400 C?
You're actually just a hair high, 370 to 390 C.
First, I can do it.
What do you think the bed temp should be?
120.
120 to 160. What do you think for the heated chamber?
75.
So 3DX Tech on their website does not have a number, but I remember talking with Matt, who's the owner of 3DX. He said as hot as you can give it. Its TG is 217 degrees centigrade. So that's the glass transition temperature where the material will get soft. For reference, PLA is 60 to 65.
Yeah.
So it's, 3 to 4 times that of PLA. You need to dry it, drying it at 120 C for 4 hours. The spools that it comes on will melt at those temperatures.
Yeah, doesn't 3DX Tech have metal spools for that situation?
I would... no, it looks like their spool is some sort of fiber-filled material. It's got to be polycarb, I would guess. That's about the only thing that's going to handle that kind of heat, and that's just barely.
I know they have... Because I've seen like their YouTube channel before, and they have metal spools that they show off sometimes, so...
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Do we know if the big customers from Desktop Metal in the automotive sector are using the printers only for prototyping? Maybe they are waiting for new production system to use for mass production. I consistently worry about companies attempting to use 3D printing in mass production for the sole purpose that unless you are validating every single part that comes off the line, you are having some serious issues with part quality from one to the other. And I'm not talking about like surface finish. Bubbles and air pockets and slight inconsistencies between prints. I mean, maybe, and I know Desktop Metal talked about, AM 2.0 in their press release. But man, I don't like... Ford tried to do this with SLS on the V6 Ford Mustang, and they had problems with the cars backfiring and blowing up the intakes because the intakes are made of thin-ass nylon. And then they had an even further issue where if it didn't blow up the intake, it would heat it up, and then the next time you went under hard acceleration, it would compress. The suction would pull your intake down. And that was a full recall.
Yeah, they call it their production system, I think, which kind of ends up making it a little bit more of a confusing term.
Now, the other... Go ahead, Justin.
Because I think, like, metal production printing would be still a lot of one-off parts. It would be for an aerospace company that is going to be printing I don't think most people would end up having a metal printed box cutter or a metal printed whatever in their home a lot of the time.
No, but you can see a lot more consumer grade. You are looking to use Desktop Metal and binder jetting metal machines for more aesthetic options. So you're looking to mass produce like a decorative faucet or decorative handles or things like that where they're not facing a lot of force load. I think we're also going to see a lot more people get a little bit more nervous about using production metal because I don't know if you heard about this, but more recently there was a cyclist in the Olympics who was riding a bike with Renishaw titanium printed handlebars, and they broke. He was going 65 kilometers an hour, and they broke, and he went flying off his bike.
So what you're saying is, Libby, he could not ride his bike with no handlebars.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. So he was fine. Nobody was hurt in it, but
I've had falls at those speeds. That's no joke. I used to be a cyclist. I've had cycle falls at 30 plus miles an hour. 65 kilometers an hour, something like 41, 42 miles an hour, somewhere in that range.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're done. Like, because likely he had weight on it and then it just went, boom. So his chin was probably absorbed on the front of the bike. You can't balance anymore because your body is just freaking out because something is not right anymore. And yeah, you're going to go down hard. Do we know...
So he was...
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So he was okay. He, took a digger for sure, but he was all right. And so it was printed. They printed in-house. It was a company called Bastion, and they were using Renishaw titanium to produce their parts. But yeah, as far as I've seen, nobody's really figured out what the specific issue was. But I can see this, you know, I can see this being something that the additive industry, specifically the metal side, is going to have to fight against for a little while, and try to, it's a very public display of a failure, and it's that kind of thing where, nobody's going to talk about how well everything works. They're only going to ever talk about the handful of times it doesn't.
Coming back to the Tesla thing, it's just that's what I really am picturing, because this is like a newer technology compared to a standard production handlebar on your bike. Like, when a Tesla blows up or catches fire or gets in an accident for any reason, it makes headlines, it trends on Twitter or whatever. When
a Ford car catches fire,
yeah.
Oh, it's another car fire. But when a Tesla catches fire, oh my God, Tesla caught fire! Oh my God, you're telling me that lithium batteries can catch fire? Please, let me show all my amount of excitement.
Wow, the gas tank that you're sitting on too could catch fire.
Yeah, Ford, Pinto. Yeah, cars are just... It's not called an internal combustion engine for no... Your car's engine is just a machine that can contain a bomb. Very small ones, but that's effectively what's occurring here. The fact that electric cars catch fire is not news. It's science. And the fact that so few of them catch fire should be news.
Yeah.
But yes, titanium looks like... When I was cycling heavy, I had custom bikes and all that. We had titanium bikes, we had titanium wheels. Then we went over to carbon fiber. I didn't like... You can't use carbon fiber wheels for downhill mountain biking. You break them. They're great for road racing, where, you reduce your drag for weight. But, yeah, I could not imagine just, like, you're going, all of a sudden, snap. I would like to see if they ever release some sort of report on how or why it failed. But it's something that upsets me about this industry is that one issue, so this issue with Renishaw and that titanium part through Bastion likely hurt every metal company in the industry.
Yep.
And it's not their damn fault. It's Renishaw's fault. A company that put themselves up for sale and nobody bought them. You saw that, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is hilarious now looking at this Desktop Metal buying ExOne, that Desktop Metal didn't buy Renishaw was on the cheap, like a quarter of a billion. Like, they wanted like $250.
But the thing is, like, if you're buying Renishaw entirely, Desktop Metal has no interest in all of Renishaw. They care about Renishaw's very specific additive market, but they're not selling their additive part independently. I think what Desktop's waiting for is for somebody to buy up Renishaw, separate the additive, sell the additive, and then Desktop can come in and get them for like 50 mil.
What is Renishaw's additive technology for metal? Is it EBM for titanium?
I think they're laser powder bed, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Working on it. Let's see.
It looks like Bastion's gonna supposed to be sharing their findings on what the issue was. 3dprinting.com is hypothesizing that there was a bolt that was over tightened.
In titanium.
Yeah, I know. Sounds like a little bit of bullshit, but...
Yeah, oh no. The bullshit is heavy here. I mean, unless you got some dude with an 8-foot cheater bar saying, this ain't ever coming apart as he's torquing it down, right? Are your torque specs measured in foot-pounds or, ton, I don't know, meter tons or something, like ridiculous amounts of torque. It looks like their technology it's laser-based. Metal powder bed fusion. Yep.
Yeah, laser powder bed, yeah.
Renishaw apply metal powder bed fusion technology as classified by ASTM International, formerly known as the American Society for Testing and Materials. This is the accurate term, although the technology is still often referred to as layer melting, metal additive manufacturing, metal 3D printing, laser sintering, or metal AM. Wow, Renishaw, thanks for just sprinkling the SEO on that line. Yeah, no, it's very clear to be like your standard powder bed fusion, DMLS. It's exactly what you expect. So they're going up against Farsoon, EOS,
3D Systems.
3DS. There's one other company that starts. Is it Velo 3D?
Yeah.
Yeah, Velo, because they're the other ones that have the support list.
Yeah.
Similar to, we did the video, what company was it?
Wasn't it? Oh, SLM. We're forgetting
SLM.
SLM. How did we forget them? They've got their own tea that just dropped this week, too.
Their own what?
Did you see their breakup video with Formnext?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's not you, it's us, and it's just like, this is what I would expect out of, like, a high schooler.
Well, it gets better. So they roast Formnext, right?
Mm-hmm.
They roast them at the end. They say, we're looking forward to networking with all of you online, minus the dull booths and the USB pen. And so there's some back and forth going on online where people are, messaging underneath this directly with SLM. And they're like, okay, this is fair enough, but we won't see you at Rapid then, right? If you're just gonna dip on Formnext and focus on online, we won't see you at Rapid. And they're like, no, we'll be at Rapid. But the entire point of the video is we're not doing in-person conferences. We're just focusing on our online marketing.
So they have a thing on their website. Of course, it leads to the YouTube video. I will post the YouTube video in the YouTube comments for this podcast. But I'm gonna go ahead and read it, at least a little bit of it. It's from Lübeck, Germany, August 11th, 2021. Additive manufacturing giant SLM Solutions has announced that it will not be attending Formnext this year, citing a successful year of digital communications as its primary reason. That said, it will stay in favor of releasing its coming news and releases digitally. In addition to this, it will invest more into its customer experience and infrastructure and incentives for its team. And to foster the next generation of additive experts, it will distribute funds to education programs to help facilitate the next generation of additive experts. CEO Sam O'Leary comments, despite restrictions related to the pandemic, we've had one of our best years yet. And this has been in part due to going digital about our products, our people, and our culture. The company saw an overwhelming amount of success in the past year with its NXG 12, 600, and free float launches, and has added even more world leaders into the space, automotive, and medical industries on its roster. Our decision to not attend Formnext is not about saving money, and it's for sure not about having none. It's about sticking to our digital path while concentrating even harder on our three most important groups: our customers, team, and global community. To back up this statement, it will upgrade the experiences of both its customers and its team with improved infrastructure, services, and incentives in a myriad of new and exciting ways. In addition to this, they will grant promising students with a passion for engineering a better financial experience. Exact details will be released in the coming weeks, digitally, of course. I just love it. Yeah, they're sprinkling some hate, and I don't think they're going to be invited to Formnext moving forward.
I disagree. From what I understand, Formnext has said, if you want to come back to the family, you're welcome to. But there's got to be some tea behind this. There's some real drama going on, because if SLM is choosing to go to Rapid but not Formnext, SLM's a German-based company. They're not a U.S. company, and Formnext takes place in Germany. So it is a very deliberate choice to not go to Formnext, and instead of just backing out and staying quiet about it, they didn't have to say anything. They chose to make this big breakup statement. So yeah, there is something going on there, and SLM wants to control where attention is going. The question is, what are we not seeing? What are
Formnext
they
did
trying to hide
respond.
with this?
Formnext did respond on the YouTube, uh, in the comments, and it's really cheesy at the end. They say family, but then capitalize the AM in it.
Huh?
Hey, I
Like,
don't mind that. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, it just feels like because this came out. It came out the day of the announcement of the acquisition.
I think it was the day. It was either the day of or the day after. Either way, it's been a big week for printing nerds.
Yeah, and of course I missed the Build Volume Friday call. My mother was in town, so we went out to dinner. But I'm sure that was a big talk. And of course we had Jim Green was on again, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Because, you know, we could talk to NASA's chief scientist like he's just another one of the people. And Justin said it, I think, the best. It's hilarious when people come in, have no idea who this guy is, get up on the stage and talk to him like he's an idiot. And we're all like, you do know that you're talking to literally the chief scientist for NASA.
him and his son, it's the best one.
Yeah,
no one
his
knows
son,
who they
yeah.
Oh
are.
yeah.
Because
Because when they're both on stage, they pretend like they don't know each other. So his son intentionally asks leading questions that he knows his dad's just gonna go off on a tangent on. Yeah, it's a
I
it's
feel
a good
like they
thing.
pre-planned for this, though, right? They're like, all right, so Dad, I'm going to set this up for you. You just got to knock it down. Maybe. I would. We
Yeah,
did
I
for
feel
our
like they
Father's Day
probably
episode.
I feel like they probably text behind the scenes, but yeah. Yeah, no, Jim Green, NASA chief scientist, he's on online all the time, talking to people all the time. Shockingly, incredibly approachable guy.
It's like always available on Slack too. Like if you just DM him, he'll totally just respond to you without an issue on the
Yeah,
build volume Slack.
it's pretty cool how additive manufacturing, just a love for making cool shit, brings people together like this. Because ultimately, Jim Green owes us nothing. And we owe him considerably more than any of us in this room can afford. You know, and he spends his time there hanging out with us because he recognizes that he has the ability to really push people there to strive to do better. Like last week, he went into a whole talk about regolith printing, to use either Mars soil or lunar soil to do 3D printing on other planets, moons, etc. And like, it's crazy to see him. You can tell that he just wants to go 120% in, but he's like, all right, Jim, back down a little bit. Some of these people don't know what you're talking about. Reel them in. Okay, all right, let's talk about it on a normal level. He does such a great job of making it easily approachable subjects for even the average person, when he could make it so crazy technical there's not a single person in the room that could follow him. Not Olivia, not Justin, not myself. And out of the three of us, I'm going to be the one that falls off first. Because it's not my world, right? My world is very, very specific in this industry, because this is what makes me more money. And I don't, I want to buy a house, not another 3D printer. And if you're looking at machines that can print regolith, you're looking at machines that can, an ExOne or a Desktop Metal, I can buy a house. Well, I should be able to buy a house for that kind of money. I don't want to get into the housing market in the United States right now, but I should be able to buy a house with that money, and I would much rather buy a house than a machine right now.
You hop to the Midwest, man. You can get a good house for that kind of money.
But see, the difference is in the Midwest, I probably have I know I have a lot more competition. 2, I'm a Florida boy, so I'll die. I will freeze to death, guaranteed.
That's fair.
And then 3, I've got, I have to worry about my better 3/4, who's an ICU nurse, and she would have to find a hospital that she likes, moonlight at it to make sure she likes the people, because I don't want her following me and then not being able to pursue her passion, right? That would be wrong of me.
I thought Hawaii was the choice. It was What was the move?
We were talking to a buddy of ours. I don't know if you met Mardini, but he works for FEMA out in Hawaii, and I guess they're offering some pretty lucrative contracts to nurses. And hilariously, if Amber was to go to Hawaii for 3 or 4 weeks and do a contract out there, it would likely be easier than it is here in Florida. Amber's hospital has more patients in it with the virus than Hawaii. Or at least the new cases in Hawaii. So it's nowhere near as bad as it is here. So I'm like, you've always wanted to go to Hawaii. I can't go with you. But you've always wanted to go. If you come back with a Hawaiian boyfriend, just make sure he's rich. That's all that I ask him, you know? That's really all that I ask for. But I don't know if she's gonna do that. I'm sure she'll talk to him, but she loves the hospital that she works at. Loves the people. But yeah, tough times right now.
Oh yeah.
We looked at buying a house locally. We couldn't have afforded it. We wish we could have. It was on 10 acres, 3,300 square feet. Had a few other buildings on the property. $650,000, which out here is a steal. That's $1 million house all day. It was being quick sold. But then I'm like, well, you know, maybe Printed Farms, which is the Cobode people here in Florida, will get themselves approved to print actual homes, and I can just go buy a plot of land, 3D print a home on it, write it all off as a marketing expense, and live in a 3D printed home. I think it would be fun. But, you know, I look at all the tech out there, and seeing this acquisition, I'm curious to see what you all think is next. Because I think this kind of sets the plate. Because if you are a company out there looking to acquire somebody else, you are going to be utilizing the data from this as your means to value other companies. Because ExOne is not some spring chicken here. They've been around, I think, longer than Desktop Metal has ever existed.
Oh, for sure.
I think ExOne's been publicly traded longer than Desktop Metal has physically existed. I'm curious, do you think that this acquisition is going to really affect long-term acquisitions in this industry? Because I think we all can agree, this is cheap. This is, I mean, yeah, $500 million is nothing to shake a stick at. That is really cheap for this company.
So, in my opinion, I think if this industry had any sanity in how we are existing, correct. But if we did, hypothetically, if we did, buying desktop or buying ExOne for that multiplier is fair. That's a pretty high multiplier when you're buying another company. But in this industry, with how many of these dumb little unicorns and double unicorns that we have as far as, you know, VC investment, the numbers are just ballooned out of proportion. So I think if we really take a step back and look holistically at purchases in general, at technology in general, this is a fair trade. It's not overvaluing. I personally think that given the context of the industry, it should have been a higher purchase, but, you know, removed past just additive, it's a fair shake. I think the question is, you know, will other companies recognize this and choose to stop, you know, overhyping and overvaluing the companies they're purchasing?
Hopefully.
Maybe. Hopefully. Otherwise, we're building us a nice little bubble to pop again.
Yeah.
But,
No
you know,
kidding.
as far as long-term goes, I don't think this is really going to impact anything outside of just, it could have been a massive unicorn purchase and it wasn't. And that's okay.
I think that it begs the question, we've seen quite a few other large acquisitions this year, prior years, of course, we're all going to point back to MakerBot. If we're saying that on average companies are being overvalued, then I would think that, ExOne is, if they're not undervalued, they're right on target. I don't know. I look at this and say, so according to the notes, which if you want to find the notes that we're looking at, you can go to our video all about the ExOne Desktop Metal acquisition, where we posted the investor notes. ExOne has 438 systems installed across the Americas, EMEA, which I don't know what that means.
Europe,
and
Middle
Asia.
East, Asia.
What? So Europe, Middle East, Asia is EMEA?
Yep. So it's just basically how you break down regions for your marketing and sales.
But then they said
Yep.
also Asia. They have 438
that's-
installed systems across the Americas, EMEA, and Asia.
Maybe the first day is Africa, but that would be.
It might be.
Yeah, it might be.
That
Yeah,
would make
Middle
sense
East,
because
Africa.
that's kind of your vertical swatch right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't they just say world freaking wide? Why would you say that? I said worldwide because I didn't know what EMEA stood for, and I just went with worldwide because there's no way they're just ignoring some areas. Okay, so they've got 438 machines, which is honestly a lot less than I was expecting. I was expecting double, triple, quadruple that, but when you look at the sale price of these machines, and you know what? ExOne, unlike a lot of companies out there, builds these machines to last. I look at, other, we're going to call them reasonably high-end machines, from, I don't want to name and shame here, but from other companies. They're not built to last like this. It's like one of those, as soon as your machine warranty is up, you will have no fingernails left from all the fingernail biting that you're doing, wondering if you're going to come back to an elephant's foot of doom, or whatever it might be. With 438 systems, you got to have pretty high confidence that it's going to work the first time, every time. And it seems as though, people that we know in ExOne feel the same way. Of course, they have failures. Everyone's going to have failures, but their machines are more reliable than most. I hope Desktop Metal doesn't change that. Because they're not...
As long as they keep their management, as long as they keep a lot of their engineers, I think Desktop will face a lot of pushback. I also feel like Rick's not dumb enough to pass up on that level of quality engineering and quality control. He's not.
Hope not.
I can't believe it. Man has done a lot of great things for Desktop Metal, done a lot of great things for Markforged in the early days. He's not dumb.
No.
He knows how to work through this stuff. So I think the purchase of ExOne is not only for IP, not only for, the clout of the name, but he recognizes that they have an issue delivering good quality systems and producing high quality systems. ExOne's very good at that. There's a lot they can learn.
Yeah, there is a lot that they can learn. Hopefully they listen. Which, God, if egos get in the way and turn this into a disaster, it's why I love and hate this industry. It's so small, which makes it, easy for us to pull NASA's chief scientist onto a phone call because, it's small enough and there's enough of us and it's such a niche. But it's also small enough that when one thing goes, upside down in a shit deal for whatever reason it might be, the entire industry feels the pain. Every time quarterly financials come out, I'm over here saying, all right, am I just gonna let everybody loose and hope that one of them does poorly so they all go down, or am I gonna hold and see what happens? It's why I don't look at my 3D printing stock portfolio anymore, especially around quarterly reports, because if one person does bad, let's say Stratasys posts a bad quarter, 3D Systems is going to be hurt. ExOne's going to be hurt. I have Organovo stock because I just firmly believe in them. Organovo's going to be really hurt because for some reason everything hurts Organovo. But there's this is very much a mom's spaghetti thing. They really only got one shot to make this work. And I think if they can make it work, they're going to set the standard for what acquisitions look like moving forward in this industry. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I think with how much they've been buying up too, I think I agree they'll set a standard for it, and I think they're going to have a pretty, if they pull it off, a pretty solid template that people will follow for acquisitions and implementation.
Do we have a number or a guesstimate as to how much Desktop Metal has spent on acquisitions this year?
Well, with just Envision, was Envision Tech this year? I can't remember.
I don't know. Let's find out.
If Envision Tech was this year, it's already breached $1 billion.
Oh, that was over $500,000 too? February 17th.
Yeah, that was $500,000. So yeah, they're
$500 million,
well over...
sorry. No, it was not.
So...
Valued at $300 million.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Oh.
February 17th is when it was closed.
And what did they buy Aerosint for?
I'd say just around $1 billion, probably.
Yeah, they're probably hovering around $1 billion that they've spent this year.
Let's see. Oh, come on, 3dprintingindustry.com. Give me the number! I don't care about the other. I don't care about AM 2.0. I don't care. Apparently, Desktop Metal went public as a $2.5 billion firm for reference. Okay. All right, that gave me nothing. It told me about how much their acquisition for all the other companies were worth.
Yeah, they're valued at 2.18 billion is their market cap right now.
Aerosint?
Desktop.
Okay. I'm just trying to find how much Desktop paid for this. Cause like, I kind of want to know.
I need to buy some.
Come on. Was the number not public? Because I'm on now my third news site and I don't see it yet.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Because like normally you would have it on Aerosint's website. Aerosint would have some sort of press release. Oh, apparently Desktop Metal bought Desktop Health. Although I feel like that was just a break off of their own company.
I think that's what it was.
I'm not seeing the number.
Yeah, I don't see it. So yeah, I would estimate they're around $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear here, right? Desktop Metal is spending money like it's burning a hole in their pocket.
Oh yeah.
Which, only slightly concerns me.
Yeah.
It concerns me a lot.
I know there's a lot of, or maybe not a lot, but so binder jetting is a complicated process to figure out. Realistically, outside of ExOne, Desktop Metal has been the only one who's managed to get anything close. GE's been working on it for ages. HP's been working on it for ages. Stratasys has been working on a metal system that's been kicked around, and I can say I don't know. This is not insider knowledge. I really don't know, but they came out years ago and said we're making a metal system, and then they just never talked about it again.
That's always interesting how that all works, though.
Oh yeah, so metal binder jetting's sort of been this, this standard that and this gold idea that everybody's trying to break into, but it's tricky. It's really hard to do well.
Yeah. So the acquisition of Aerosint was in 2021. It was, I see an article on 3D Natives from July 15th. But yeah, no one's talking about the value.
I don't know enough about the binder jetting process. Does it provide you like a green part, then it has to be sintered afterwards?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, so I forget what Shapeways calls it. Shapeways has a name for the ExOne process. It's like their golden bronze or something like that, or their God, what the hell do they call it? Brass bronze, because it's a bronze part that's then infiltrated and sintered with brass metal, or the other way around. I forget. Albarello says it's on the financial. The numbers are there. I'm telling him we can't find them, and I'd love for him to post it.
We can't link links if he just can give us the number even.
The numbers have to be public, but maybe will not show up before the next financial report. And Happy Farang is saying it's modern day alchemy. It's true. Metal binder jetting is quite frankly straight up modern day alchemy. Mm-hmm. The whole sintering process is amazing. I do wish that we could control the shrink rates a little bit better. I still think that's what a lot of metal 3D printing struggles from straight up is shrink rates and how to adjust for it. If you guys watch the channel Veritasium, the host, is his name Derek? Pretty sure his name is Derek. Went and visited Relativity Space, and if any of you are StarCraft fans, watch that episode of Veritasium. You'll enjoy it. But they talked about how they're basically using a MIG welder robot arm. Right now, they called it it was electron deposition. They call it something special. It looked very similar to a MIG welder, okay? It was literally a MIG gun. They had some other plasma stuff going on in there. It was basically a MIG gun.
I think it's EBAM.
I think so.
Electron beam additive manufacturing.
I believe it's something in that range, or plasma arc additive manufacturing.
Yeah.
Go watch the video. It's all explained in there. My dumbass doesn't remember. But great video, by the way. Phenomenal video. But they talk about how they actually have to print the model all cattywampus and messed up so that they have a software that can predict how it will shrink and how it will deform. So they print it so that it will shrink and deform into its final size.
It's just metal in general. Like when you watch AVE ever, he heats up, like you heat up the metal like 100C and you get X amount of shrinkage or X amount of expansion. So, like, and I can't remember the number, but
it's metal dependent.
Yeah,
but
the other. Go ahead, Justin.
It's just metal. That's just how metal is. It'd be really hard to avoid it completely. You can compensate for it. It's really what you're having to do in the design process or in the slicing process.
Yeah, so you get a lot of, so obviously, your binder jetting process has a lot more shrinkage than your laser powder bed fusion, but even in laser powder bed, you're getting a shrink rate of like 0.02%, and you think, wow, okay, that's not bad. That's really not bad by comparison. But I've run parts that need to slot together in different orientations for a project, and what I found is that if they're all printing in the same vertical orientation, everything's fine. But if one of them prints horizontal, the supports will actually pull in the sides of this part I was printing just enough that they no longer overlap, even though you would think a 0.02% shrink rate is effectively negligible. But it still catches you.
It does. And, we see shrinking in FDM and MSLA and all the, one of the big issues with resin 3D printing is the shrinkage, in that it is very much dependent on your cross-sectional area of each layer, so it's very difficult to predict. But with metal, it is a different animal. Now, I'm curious to understand the shrink rates post-infiltration, because you'll get some shrink rates when you're drying out and curing out the binder, but when you start infiltrating it and the metal that you're infiltrating it with cools, do you see some warping or anything like that? Have you had any experience there, Olivia?
No, I haven't done too much. I want to do more with binder jetting, but honestly, I just haven't had the opportunity to. yeah, the handful of places I've worked that have had 3D printers, I've had great access to and great experience with, but yeah, my university is nothing more than a handful of Stratasys FDM printers. So getting binder jet access right now is a complicated task for me.
And do you have printers at home?
I do. They're not here with me. They're also up at my university, but I have a little Ender 2 that just exists and prints occasionally. But my main workhorse that I use a lot more is a little Anycubic Photon.
Resin. Yep.
Yeah, spend a lot more time with resin.
Wednesday
Messy process.
we're doing our we're releasing our unboxing of the Mono X.
Yeah, I have heard good things about that. I'd love to scale up eventually, but realistically right now, I don't have a good enough argument for buying another resin printer.
Don't worry
Much
about
as
the
I want
argument, just do
to.
it.
Yeah.
And
I
be
gotta finish
careful.
paying for school, man.
You got to be careful because this whole Qi 2 box, Qi 2 board thing is, don't buy brand new resin printers right now. For those that are watching that have, regular 3D printers, do not buy brand new resin printers right now. I can't recommend you do that. The new Qi 2 boards will force you to use Qi 2 box, and if you've ever used Lychee Slicer, you'll be reminded as to how bad Qi 2 box is. I've got 2 Elegoo Saturns here. The Mono X is actually unboxed and on the table out there because we filmed the video already. I just haven't brought it back in. But, we compare the size of the two machines. It's bigger. It's taller. Their XY is the same, but its height is taller. And then we even bring out the wash and cure plus the big wash and cure station for those larger printers to show that off size comparison as well.
Yeah,
I don't mind it.
I'd like to buy a wash and cure station before I actually get my own second printer. Just because right now I'm running the classic little mason jar setup.
That's the small one. That's the small here. So, nope. This is you. That's the guy she tells you not to worry about. The small ones are something like, can I read it from here? 3 liters. The big one, 8.5.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, my intro into resin printing, I had a funny path into additive in that I bought my first printer, my first Ender 3, Ender 2, Ender 3, whatever we're on now. I don't remember. I bought that in May of 2019, and by July of 2019, I was designing parts and printing parts for Markforged carbon and 3D Systems DMLS machines, and actually setting up builds, running builds, cleaning builds. So it was a very quick step from hobbyist to industrial for me, and the learning process sort of happened simultaneously.
And it's unfortunate because not a lot of the skills from the hobbyist level transfer over well into the professional level unless you're using FDM or resin-based professional machines.
It is incredibly challenging to go from spending all your time learning FDM and getting really good at FDM, and then within the same month of finally figuring out FDM, have someone throw inverted resin systems at you and tell you to pick that up too. It is tough to learn without really the proper background on it. But yeah, the skill sets between the two are somewhat transferable.
Yeah, I mean, certainly seat time on these machines it's non-replaceable. Right? Mm-hmm. Seat time on any 3D printer, additive manufacturing machine, I don't care if it's a Housefire ANET A8. Oh man, I sent out a tweet to the was it a Business Insider or something? They put out their list of best 3D printers. Yeah. The Lulzbot Mini won best overall. Lulzbot Mini 2 got best overall. But their best mid-tier 3D printer was from ANET. It was like their E5. I'm like, who the hell made this list? That company is known for burning houses down. Where's the Prusas? Like, don't get me wrong. I think the Lulzbot Mini is a great printer. It is not the best 3D printer on the market.
Even in Ender 3, at least mine had thermal protection on by default, which was nice.
I had to get a new
You
main
say
board
that
for
like you're surprised about that. That's a problem that you're surprised about that. I mean, you should be surprised about that, but that's a problem that you're surprised by that.
Yeah. It is surprisingly quiet, though, that machine.
Dude, that Ender 3 has got to be the quietest printer that I own at this point.
Besides the fan, it's so quiet.
Oh yeah, if you replace those fans with some beautiful hamburgers, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Except
Noctuas.
it's all except you have to like step down the voltage and deal with all that stuff. But
Why? Noctua makes 5-volt fans.
they're 24 volt. It's a 24 volt system. They don't do the 5 volt like Prusa does.
You can get 24-volt fans, or you just put a step down.
Yeah, you have to do a buck converter. There's no 24 volt Noctuas.
Why are you gonna go all that work and do a buck converter? Put a freaking resistor in line and you're done. It'll burn it off in heat. You only need probably a 1/2 watt or less. Those fans are gonna draw what, 1/10 of an amp at 12 volts? It's 6.
Fans actually draw surprisingly amount of power.
Do they really?
Yeah. Like a couple watts.
I'm not putting a gosh darn buck converter. I'm not putting a $6 buck converter on a $180 30. I say that as I'm like looking to spend something like $400 on upgrades for the freaking Ender 3. But Olivia, I am not doing it because I want to. I am doing it for the YouTube channel.
Oh, mine's almost stock. I bought the new main board. I bought a new aluminum extruder, new springs. That's about it. I don't care about that machine. If it runs enough, it runs. I'm not about to upgrade it to run well. I don't care.
I got the silicone springs instead of the little yellow springs. It's just a little silicone, like almost so you'd soft mount like a board with, and it doesn't move it because it doesn't warp from the heat at all, so you don't have to ever touch it once it's level. And I'm like, okay, I put a BL Touch on there too because I don't like leveling at all. So if I can have the silicone springs just hold it forever then solid mount it, and then just the BL Touch to compensate for any little extra warp. But I was measuring across the entire bed, 0.02 was the highest point, and then the lowest point was 0.01 compared to the whole, was minus 0.01, so like nothing for a first layer, which works for me.
Yeah, I'll stick to. Go get yourself a Prusa Mini and huck that Ender 2 to the local makerspace.
I'll hang on to it. I'm lazy. It fits. It honestly runs well enough for me. Once I see that first layer or two's down, it runs fine. I had a 20-hour print on it. I think it's an Ender 3, not an Ender 2. I don't really remember.
I think the print quality is better than my Prusa.
They can be. They can
I'm
be
kicking
really
you
nice.
out of this call. You're fired. You're fired!
I need to send you a picture of this print, so this is the fidget thing.
Are you running the printers at the same speeds?
Just I think acceleration is a little bit slower on the Ender.
Justin, don't you think that's going to account for something?
But besides that, yeah. But the print time I think was 2 minutes difference between the printer if I printed the same, so it's not that much difference wise.
I find that non-all metal hot ends, the PTFE, assuming it's relatively new, is amazing. They do so well, but because they wear out very quickly, it's not a great long-term solution. We're going to talk about that. I'm attempting, and I said it last week, and Olivia, if you know anyone, I am trying to find a way to detect formaldehyde in the air. Formaldehyde is one of the chemicals that is off-gassed when you overheat PTFE. So when it starts to break down, it'll off-gas formaldehyde. Well, if I can detect that in the air, I can know precisely when that PTFE is starting to break down, and we can start doing a study on how print quality is affected during the breakdown.
You can buy a formaldehyde detector.
Yeah,
Okay.
Home Depot has them.
Can I buy a formaldehyde detector that costs me less than the 3D printer?
Yep.
Wait. Which printer is it?
The Ender 3?
Yes, this one's only $102.
That is a lot of money for
It's less than the printer though.
Not by much. Oh god, I found one for 90. Ooh, this is an air quality monitor.
Oh, you can get one for $20.
But does it detect formaldehyde or just
Yeah. Portable
air?
formaldehyde, gas concentrator, indicator sensor, detector, 3-light color alarm. So it won't tell you how much there is, but you don't need that. You just need an alarm.
This one's $59.99.
Okay, how many of you are buying these from AliExpress right now?
It's
Get off
Amazon.
AliExpress.
Amazon, man.
Oh, it's Amazon? Okay. I'm over here like, I am not getting some weird ass, unable to verify it's any good formaldehyde detector.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're trying to be cheap all of a sudden. Oh, man. Yeah, I think it would make for... So we have, like, one of the best mortician schools in the country here, hilariously.
I love weird flexes like that.
I mean, it is pretty cool. And morticians and funeral directors make buku money. And, like... This is not like a 4-year... It's St. Pete College, okay? This is not like the University of Florida. No, it's St. Pete College. Now, nothing against St. Pete College, but it ain't the University of Florida. And they have one of the best schools to become a mortician in the country. And it's like a 3 or 4 year wait. It's like trying to take the welding classes at the local community college has a 2.5 year wait right now. For welding classes! But...
We need welders, man.
Huh?
We need welders, man. Send them up here. We got space.
But training. For where you work right now?
No, yeah. So like we've got schools up here that have their own really good 2-year welding programs.
I would guess
and we've got
because Tampa's a port city, that would likely explain why welders are in such high demand for ships. But
2-year degree, cost of living in the Midwest, real cheap school. It's a tech school. I mean, it's an option.
It's absolutely an option. Yes, yeah, for sure. For sure. Happy Farang says, all my printers are outdoor. It is now my neighbor's problem. Happy Farang is overseas. They do big 3D prints for layups and fixturing, and they do a lot of CNC routing and milling as well. They do custom furniture and that kind of thing. It's like,
yeah,
I want to see them get a Forest printer.
I want to see the comparison of like cap tube compared to standard PTFE, because I know there's some other additive in there that makes it a little bit. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more temperature resistant. Like that was the first thing I did on my printer, was put that in.
This is why we have a YouTube projects thing for us to discuss, because then all we got to do is just reach out to Capricorn, see if I can get, or if it's cheap enough, I'll just buy it. But if it's expensive,
it's so cheap.
Okay, it's so cheap. Okay, hey, look, if I don't have to pay for stuff that I'm gonna do a review on, that'd be nice, right?
They sent it out for Verf. Did you not get one of the Verf boxes?
No, I wasn't. Oh. I wasn't involved.
I wasn't either.
What?
You just had to sign up for the box, and they sent out boxes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did you send that to me? No.
I think it was before I knew. I think it was before I knew you.
So you didn't send it to me then?
Probably not.
But no, I am a weird 31-year-old. I don't use social media. I don't, a lot of what you guys see on social media is all the staff. Although I didn't do our YouTube community post yesterday, and I didn't do it yet today, so I have to go do that later today. But yeah, it's weird now that our director of social media is gone. She's in Europe for the rest of the month. Now they left me with like lots of notes and everything that need to be done, but it's like I don't know. I just don't. But yeah, I'm excited to see where all of this goes. Olivia, if you had to make a statement now, positive, negative, neutral, how's this going to work out for Desktop Metal, you think?
It's gonna work great for them. This is exactly what they need.
What
Between Aerosent being their ability to print in multiple materials, the knowledge base that I pray, will leverage from ExOne, this is setting them up for some real success.
what do you think about ExOne? How's ExOne going to fare from this?
I think ExOne's going to do well. ExOne has historically had some terrible, terrible ability to market themselves. They just have not been great at it. They're a really solid company making really solid technology, and they just don't make that really clear and approachable. So I think this is a very good move for them. It's going to be great for them as long as Desktop respects them, the work they've put in, and what value they bring to the table as a merged entity rather than their new purchase toy. If they really integrate ExOne, if they really integrate the management, the leadership, figure out a way to compromise the two cultures, this will be good.
Do you... Now, of course, there are going to be hiccups. What kind of hiccups do you foresee? And how do you believe they'll work with it?
I think there's going to be a little while will they establish a pecking order as far as management and leadership they're bringing in. And I think there's going to be struggles on compromising your technologies. So getting your engineers from these two different companies, multiple different companies really, to come together, work together, learn everybody's different communication styles and figure out what are the best ideas we can take from all of these and be able to put aside your ego enough to say what isn't very good about each of them.
Yeah, that's ego is going to be a problem for sure. Because ExOne's walking in saying, homie, we've been doing this longer than you even were a thought. And then Desktop Metal says, we don't care, we own your asses now.
Exactly. And if Desktop's got the marketing clout, Desktop has the money to pour into this to really develop it, but ExOne's going to be approaching this from a different angle, a different perspective, a little bit more level-headed, probably a little bit slower, and a little bit less, I don't want to say aggressive, but I think they'll be a bit more metered in their approach, their thought process, and how they're choosing to break down these problems. So I really think you're going to see issues in what management structure comes out of this and issues in actually getting your engineers to work together.
Those are all pretty typical problems during acquisitions, though. I don't think that is anything that's, unexpected or anything like that.
I think their portfolio is really powerful. I think there's not very much overlap, and I think there's a lot of complementary information and technology. So as long as they're, respectful of each other and, go through the same process everybody else goes through in an acquisition, you're gonna be fine. They're gonna come out on, on top of this, and they're gonna, I hope, produce some really awesome machines.
Yeah. I'm gonna put you on the spot. How are they going to be integrating? What do you think the next, big desktop metal printers that come out? How are they going to be integrating all these new resources? If you believe they're going to be integrating all these new resources, what do you think this new machine will do that their current machines do not?
Their first one is just going to be more reliable. They're going to have a more reliable system with more materials, and they're going to have, that staple of ExOne back there. Now, Aerospace is a laser powder bed fusion system. That's their focus. They effectively make the rollers and allow your different materials to be dispensed as powder. On a separate note, I'm unclear on how that powder reclaiming process goes. I really hope there's something there and you're not just junking all that powder, but I digress. I don't know.
The unspoken problems in the AM industry,
right.
All the waste, especially in powder. Like, you're wasting something upwards of like 60 to 80% out of every powder build. I know it's gotten better for the plastics, but the metals.
Yeah, the plastics are pretty. The plastics are pretty all right. The metals are a little iffy. Highly dependent on the material you're using too. But yeah, so I think the big system that we'll see come out, it might not be their initial run, but the big system you're going to have come out is going to be a multi-material binder jetting process. So you'll actually be able to have your interfaces built in of your different materials, and I think it's going to take a while because of that same shrink rate we've been talking about, the shrink differences, the binding differences. You're not hot binding these materials together. You're printing two theoretically, hopefully compatible materials next to each other.
Yeah.
They're going to shrink differently. They're going to behave differently. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time working through that sintering process. But I think if they can figure out how to do multi-material binder jetting, they're going to open up a world of possibilities that we haven't touched before.
I agree. Justin, what are your thoughts here, buddy?
I mean, I don't even know. This isn't really what I know yet. So
Take a friggin' stab at it, homie.
I think I think we'll see some cool machines come out from them eventually. Like after a few years, once everything gets kinda together, we could possibly even see like some sort of combination of the two technologies with like the laser powder bed and possibly binder jetting. That could be something interesting that could be along the lines of what could come out of all of this. And just I think reliability will be what Olivia said will be one of the largest things that happens, and that's going to benefit I think everyone out of this, not just the company itself, but the consumers. And yeah, it should be cool what we end up seeing in the future and how it makes their stocks go as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You know, I'm on board with you, Olivia, where I'd like to see some sort of like multi-material style of accessibility for the binder jetting process. Multi-material in laser just sounds dangerous to me because you have to get it so hot, and if your materials aren't metallically compatible like that, which most metals aren't, because galvanic corrosion's a bit of a bitch, you know, you'll run into those problems. I want to see more mixed material binder jetting. I truly want to see more mixed material binder jetting, where you can take advantage of, let's say, a bronze and a titanium, where you get that easily machinable bronze mixed with that hard as, you know, stone titanium, where you can get a product that is, you know, both somewhat flexible but very rigid and can stand up to very, you know, odd temperatures, where normally titanium is not a binder jetted process. It's laser.
The bronze on the outside, that allows you to machine it to a really perfect surface, but then you also have the titanium on the inside of it.
Well, and that's common for the powder bed metal binder jetting process, that they will print it deliberately big, mill it down, and life is good. Or they end up being used in, you know, art installations, that kind of thing.
But milling titanium and or Inconel type stuff is not fun. So
God. Binder jetted Inconel.
That would be interesting to see.
Can we hear SJ yelling from Orlando right now?
I know that ExOne came out with binder jet titanium and aluminum, and Desktop Metal announced that they were working on binder jet aluminum.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I've got to believe that binder jet Inconel is in the works. Somebody's got to be daydreaming about it over there.
Nadav is saying, bottom line, it's going to kill half of the products and let go a quarter of the people. Two companies combined never get 2 times better product.
Well, here's the thing. The thing is, like I said earlier, their portfolios, they don't overlap very much. There isn't much that they're going to have to kill, realistically.
And
they're
where
really
they do overlap, it's crazy complementary.
Yeah. They work really well together. So I think, obviously, you'll see people let go. It's what happens when you have an acquisition. You'll have people leave, you'll have people let go, on and on. But in this case, I don't think you'll see half a product line get killed off. I really don't.
I
And
agree
I
with you.
think I think with the purchase of ExOne, ExOne doesn't have all too many machines in the market, but the ones they do have perform well, perform reliably. People love using them. I think Desktop Metal would be a fool to kill that off.
I agree. We look at a lot of what's out there, especially between the two companies. Cutting that off or having some sort of it, we know there's going to be a falling out. How bad, we don't know, but if it's a really bad fallout, this acquisition is going to go south real fast. I think Desktop Metal is banking on the fact that the companies are so reasonably complementary that a lot of the people, other than potentially, like you said, some managerial differences, right? Pittsburgh versus Boston. Um, that is, I think it's going to be personnel. I don't see the machines going anywhere. If anything, I think we're going to see faster production of new machines, and that's my opinion. You can take it with a grain of salt, of course. Albarello is saying DM management team is fantastic. I'm confident that everything will go fine. Most of them are scientists and engineers, with some classic managers. And I this whole hiring from within, it's what we do here at 3DM. You know, every now and then we go out and we look for people because there's nobody in the company that can do it, or we just need more people. But my preference is to promote from within. Justin, do you remember what we actually brought you on for?
CAD.
That's not what I brought you on for.
I don't remember now. Oh yeah, time lapses.
Programming the Raspberry Pi, because I don't know
Yeah.
how to do that. And yes, it's
Yeah.
very simple. I could learn it, but you know, we had a young kid here who was interested, knew all the shit about it. I'm like, dude, yeah, go ahead. It's gonna cost me a lot less for him to do it than it was for me to do it myself. And all of a sudden, you are video editing, you are working on the marketing side, you're doing CAD, which you just had your first successful end-to-end product development in the company, which is pretty freaking dope.
I saw the prints of that.
Huh?
I never even saw the prints of it.
Oh, that sucks. I don't know. We were under an NDA for that product, so I don't think I took any photos. They were fine. There were no issues with them. But like,
Yeah.
the client calls me and they said, "Can we talk about the parts?" I'm like, Jesus, what happened? What now? Oh, we love them. I'm like, could you have had a little more enthusiasm? Like, I honestly thought that he's like, well, you know, one of the parts was broken. I said, yes. Did you realize that there were 9 parts instead of 8? I sent you the broken one that I dropped and accidentally stepped on. Something about a bad back means I can't really go down to the floor and pick things up easily, so I just don't. Amber will help me, or John will help me when they're around, or you get better grabbing things with your toes. It's weird, but you know what? Hey, it keeps the back from hurting too much. And I put tape around it and said bad part, or maybe I forgot to do that. I don't know. He's like, yeah, other than this broken part, it's beautiful. We want to move forward with production. I'm like, oh, thank God. Okay. All right. Awesome. Albarello wanted to correct something. He said most of them are scientists and engineers, not classic managers. And if that's the case, then I have a lot more faith for the personnel clashing, that it's not going to be as bad as we think. If they all can kind of talk the same language, we'll see. Now, I am curious about our buddy who works at ExOne, if he's going to stay on as it becomes Desktop Metal, or if they're going to keep him on. So that'll be...
I think they will, because the other thing is, Desktop Metal has been trying to poach from ExOne for ages. They have gone to tons and tons of their technical folks and said, hey, we will pay you more. We want you to work for us. We need your expertise. And a lot of them have said no, because they do prefer the Pittsburgh culture over the Boston culture. And I, like I said, I think there will be culture clashes. I think people will be looking for different things in each of these companies. But from a manager sense, you know, if you have your ExOne CEO and your Desktop Metal CEO, somebody is obviously going to have to step down, and it's obviously going to be ExOne CEO. And it's a matter of how do you know, there's a certain level of C-suite executives who are going to just have to leave because they need to for the growth of the company. But how do you, with the rest of them, move them from their very high up position and still make them feel valuable and like a good member of the company and somebody who's got impact without, having too many cooks in the kitchen.
And that's a great point. I mean, clearly Desktop Metal's board of directors is going to expand, right? There's no, I would believe, even if these CEOs, CTOs, CMOs, and all that are leaving, they're going to still find themselves in a board position and with what is going to be a very, very Ultem 1010 golden parachute on the way down. Yeah, of course, their stock, these people have stock options that just went up 45% overnight. Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a sell-off.
Did you see that Formlabs is hiring a CTO? The only reason I found out about that is because Stuff Made Here at the end of his most recent video, he was like, "Hey, we need Formlabs needs a CTO. I used to work there. It's fun."
Yep. Yeah, he was directly responsible for the Form 3 and the Fuse 1. He was like the lead engineer on those products. And the kid's brilliant. I mean, if you watch his channel, you'll understand that.
Even aimbot bow and arrow was the most recent video.
He knows the algorithm better than most. He grew his channel from 0 to multi-million subscribers in 6 months? Maybe?
Yeah.
He hasn't been around very long, but yeah, it just works. This is why I wish I could be a good editor. I'm not.
3 million subscribers?
Yeah.
In a year.
I know what 200,000 subscriber channels make. He's doing fine.
Oh, and he's getting sponsored every single video too by Formlabs, Tormach.
Oh yeah, that Tormach sponsorship's probably worth 150, 200 grand. It's machines.
And they just send him machines, yeah.
Yeah, it's the machines. The machines.
And then he also gets sponsored by KiwiCo on top of that, and yeah.
One day I'll be clearing out space in my garage or pouring a pad for some Tormachs so that we can build our 3D printer in a centrifuge project. Olivia, are you down for this?
Did you hear about
why
this?
not?
Do you know about
I know
this
nothing
project?
about this. I'm on board.
At 10,000 subs, we are planning on we're going to build a centrifuge with the university, with Johnson College up in Scranton. The professor there, Cole Goldstein, he was on a recent episode, said, yeah, we'll just make it a senior project, no big deal. We're going to put, since we've had 3D printers in space, we've had 3D printers print upside down, sideways, all that kind of thing, but we've never put a 3D printer in a centrifuge. Now, I'm told that I just have to get onto I have to convince a carny with $50 to let me take a 3D printer onto a Gravitron. And while that will make for a hilarious video, it's nowhere, because Gravitrons are what? 1.5, 2 Gs? I want to print it 8 or 9 Gs. I want to see what happens.
Steppers would be possible. That's what the steppers won't be strong enough to combat that.
Yeah, you're going to have to mod your printer pretty hard.
Especially on a bed slinger, you wouldn't be able to do it.
We're going to find out. Well, so my theory is we're going to turn the printer on its side. So the Z-axis will now be effectively a Y-axis. And then that way, the bed moving back and forth won't be an issue. Because it is moving in the direction that the force is occurring. You're not going against the force here.
Yeah, but then the Z...
You've got to modify your Z-stepper for that.
Yeah, your Z-stepper, you're going to need anti-backlash nuts and everything. That's not going to let it go back down pretty much.
But see, the thing with no, it's not going to allow it to come up. Going down won't be an issue. Coming up is going to be the issue. You'll be going against.
You're going to have the... Okay, I see how you're...
My theory is that because of the lead screws, right, it's not like a 1-to-1. It's already effectively geared. Now, we could just put geared steppers in there, up the steps per millimeter and call it a day, but this is what the video's all about. It's a whole build series. Oh, it's going to be a disaster. We're going to put a freaking... I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with this thing. Right, I'm going to have a centrifuge, in a non-trivial centrifuge, a big centrifuge. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. What other dumb things can I put in a centrifuge?
Put a seat on there so we can take rides on it.
Go to Disney and do that. See, if Disney was cooler, we could convince them to let us use their destination space or whatever it is where they have a centrifuge for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like see, or you find a way to like smuggle it in a backpack in pieces, like multiple people bring in pieces, and you assemble it while you're waiting in line. Has to be battery powered and all that, but for ours, I want to put sensors in there. I want to put a camera in there, and then that way, as it's printing, we can see how are supports handled. Let's be able to mount the printer on any side of the enclosure, so that we can really see how these forces affect printing. Could we get it to a point where we don't need supports because of the way that the forces are being created during the centrifuge process, that the plastic would physically not sag anymore? It would be pulled out until it would be cold. Inquiring minds need to know this. I want to print a Benchy at 6Gs.
I still want my lawnmower engine powered 3D printer.
Yeah, Justin wants to build a gasoline powered 3D printer with like lawnmower engines. I want to do it with diesel so we can roll coal while 3D printing. Like the opposite ends of the spectrum, just like dark black smoke and a 3D printer.
I mean, we could get some Cummins turbo diesels for pretty cheap out of salvage cars.
All of a sudden, we have like 6 Cummins 12 valves driving this 3D. You got like 10,000 pounds of engine driving a little tiny Ender 3. God, this would be amazing.
To be tiny. Like the printer has to be tiny compared to the engines. Yes.
Well, yes, of course. You know, do these serve any purpose?
Yes.
Happy Farang says go hydraulic. We could go hydraulic, but hydraulic is boring. It doesn't involve noise and gasoline and diesel. Hydraulic.
Yeah, I want like at least 1,000 horsepower on each axis.
Hey, if you wanna pay for that, I'm down. Yeah, I got a buddy that builds Supra engines with the best of them. We'll just put a couple of 2JZs on it, going 9,000 RPM.
Yeah, all be two-stepping the whole time, so they're hitting the middle rev limiter.
This is the juxtaposition would be beautiful. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where I feel safe or comfortable building a 3D printer. I will need CNC machines to build a 3D printer that utilizes any engine other than stepper motors or servos, right? Something that has like real horsepower behind it.
Jerry's cool brush. Those motors that Jerry linked yesterday with the brushless, like they're like quad motors with a potentiometer on it. That would be pretty cool.
Hall effect sensor, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's to say, you don't put potentiometers on
No.
On motors that spin more than 360 degrees. Yeah. Anything with Hall effect sensors we can have some fun with, but I'm hoping by then maybe we could reach out to Desktop Metal, get some metal parts printed, and get some parts from ExOne. We have all these YouTubers that compare filament. I want to start looking at comparing metals and some of these higher end machines, because
we can get test chips for pretty easily.
I say we do it and we build dumb, stupid test stuff. I don't know. Why not?
I mean, that's what the whole competition for the Navy was. They just.
I'm still salty about that, and I had nothing to do with that competition. I'm still salty for you. You got beat out by people that had way more budget than you only because they had more budget than you.
We were competing against Desktop Metal. Desktop Metal didn't even place.
Ha! Losers! Yeah, it was you and... Who was the company you worked with?
Print Parts.
Print Parts. Okay. Didn't work with us, but that's also because we couldn't make metal parts, and I'm not paying for that.
Except he fell off the face of the earth, but...
Yeah. Well, so now we have another engineer on board for stupid shenanigans. I am looking forward to stupid shenanigans. It's the basis of half of the things that I enjoy in my life are stupid shenanigan based. But yeah, Olivia, I want to thank you. This has been a lot of fun. We deep dived a little bit. We had some fun tangenting as we always do, and I'm curious if we're gonna need to do an update video. I don't know if we'll need to, but I'm very curious to see what comes of all of this. I am likely going to probably gonna be grabbing some Desktop Metal stock when it opens up on Monday. We'll see. We'll see how cheap it is if it's still going down. I think it might be a good buy, but again, not financial advice. Any closing thoughts or anyone you want to say hi to or anything like that before we close this thing off?
I just want to say thanks so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here. Had a great time talking with you. And yeah, if there's reason to do a follow up, I'm more than happy to. But yeah, I'm just as interested as everyone else is to see how this develops and hopefully what great tech comes out of it.
Well, if you ever find yourself wondering, I don't know what I'm going to do with a lunchtime on Saturday, give us a call.
Yeah.
We're always looking for more speakers. Justin's going to be reaching out to more people. We want to get more speakers on. Episode 52 is coming up. That one's going to be, I'm going to have the entire staff, as many of our staff members as we can, because that's 1 year of the podcast, episode 52. But yeah, anytime you want to come on, talk shop, show off cool stuff, you got to send me some pictures of that Ultem table. I want to see it. We'll use that as the... because we do YouTube community posts for, hey, if you missed it, and I'll have that as the photo.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, if you guys aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a like while you're at it. Justin, anything else from you, buddy?
No, I think I'll probably go and buy some Desktop Metal on Monday too. So,
Can you even legally buy stock?
as a custodial account, yeah.
Okay. All right. Again, this is not financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Do not put money out there that you are not willing to throw into the wind and give it to somebody else, because the likelihood of that happening is considerably higher than you think.
Yeah.
But yes, have a happy Catter Day, everybody. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Olivia, thanks again for hanging out.
Thanks, guys. See ya.